the STAR presentation. STAR is a new product for ARC. We've introduced it about 4 months ago, so it's been gaining a lot of traction. It's something that we're really excited about. And STAR is focused on helping companies, end user type companies that are acquiring technology, helping them pick the best supplier and the best technology to fit their particular needs. That's something ARC has been helping our clients with for many years. We've been doing it on a custom basis, and we've developed a methodology that makes that a very sound and secure decision, putting the needs of the application ahead of the opinions or needs of particular people in the organization. So we developed a very fact-based, data-based analysis of vendors and solutions, and we've incorporated that into a product that we're now selling and delivering with services or without, to enable customers to handle very strategic decisions that have impacts in the $500,000 plus total cost of ownership range, where it's worth really sitting down and using a process to do that decision. Now, when companies enter into a strategic selection of any type, they're faced with a number of issues, and the issues may be around the experience of their team making a decision. It may be that they don't have enough information. They understand the solution that they're familiar with and have used in the past, but they don't necessarily have a good analysis or understanding of all the different solutions that are on the market. People and companies tend to be biased towards past solutions. They know them best. They know what's a part of the solution and what isn't part of the solution. They know the problems that they're likely to encounter. And that bias tends to slow them down from selecting any other solution. Bandwidth is an issue. They may not have a reasonable timeline to get this done and want help to accelerate the process. They may not have a proven and trusted process. And what it comes down to is, in most cases, they don't even know what they need to know in order to do this. You don't know what you don't know. So we developed a process that steps people through a very regimented and logical progression to doing a supplier selection, starting with selecting a decision team, to defining a selection process, identifying selection criteria, the items you use to make your decision, weighting the criteria, making sure that items that are very important get a higher prominence in the evaluation, developing the short list, developing an RFI, a request for information, and sending that out to folks, evaluating the responses, and then finally documenting the process so that others can review and understand the decision that was made. ARC has been involved in this for a long time, offering this as a consulting engagement in the past, and the areas that we provide special knowledge or core capabilities are in understanding business requirements and decision criteria, weighting the criteria, understanding what's greater importance than the other. We know all the vendors in a market, and we know them quite well because of the market research studies that we produce. So we can help with an RFI list. We can help formulate the RFI questions. We can evaluate vendor responses. We can help customers in measuring using a Kepner and Tregoe analysis, scoring the results, helping with advice in commercial negotiations. And then long term, there's supplier relationship management. Those are areas that ARC can help in as well. So as we move on, customers that aren't using our STAR process have to have a clear understanding of what they're getting into. Making up or designing your own process takes time. Creating selection criteria takes time. Weighting it takes time. Dealing with existing bias is always going to be an issue. There's a lot of data that's required and research required in order to make the decision for shortlisting or evaluating products. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And then finally, one of the biggest issues involved in a supplier selection is simply documenting the entire process. That takes a great deal of time too, and once a decision's been made, documentation is something that companies aren't likely to put enough effort into. These have all been addressed in the solutions that ARC is offering, and our standard product aids in every one of those areas. Time is money, and if you evaluate the amount of time along with other things like research that needs to be acquired, you're looking easily at this typical case, $180,000 or more. $250,000 would be a typical supplier selection process from beginning to end. When companies think about it, then they realize that this is a very significant cost, and then they look at ways to reduce that cost. And that's the business ARC is in. We believe that we can take this cost and reduce it to a quarter of what it would typically be. Typical engagements for supplier selection using our ARC tools would be an overall cost of tool and time associated with the effort in the $50,000 range as opposed to $180,000, $200,000 or more. We call our product STAR, and STAR stands for Solutions that Accelerate Results, and it's all about picking the right solution to give you the greatest amount of return for your particular application. We involve a field-proven process that we've developed over years and have implemented with countless other engagements on a consulting basis. It provides fact-based decision-making. It provides conflict avoidance. It's a fair, open, and fully documented process. So the companies that are involved in a STAR evaluation will understand that their products have been fairly evaluated and compared against criteria, and the outcome is much stronger, much better than it would be without a process like ours. STAR has been developed for a variety of different domains. We have research analysts that focus on these various areas: distributed control systems, advanced process control, collaborative production management, enterprise asset management, analytics, warehouse management, transportation management. There are many more coming. And if a customer has a particular interest, we're glad to take a look at it, take one of our analysts, and put them on the task of creating the criteria specifically for a particular domain. The STAR process is a standard process that's actually built on Microsoft technology, Microsoft Excel technology. And what makes one STAR product different from another is that we come up with a different set of criteria, the items to evaluate and the questions to pose potential suppliers for the particular domain. So we take the expertise of our analysts and we've built that into these Excel workbooks. The workbooks are completely automated using macros and will step the clients through a step-by-step process in coming to the resolution of the best solution for their application. The solution can be used two ways. We can host it online, or we can deliver the workbook to the customer. Now, when it's hosted online, it's delivered through Microsoft SharePoint services. When it's delivered to the customer, it's delivered as an Excel workbook that the team can work with on their own. The macros are involved in both cases, so whether you run it online or whether it's delivered as a workbook, it's fully automated and steps you through the process. The process is something that lasts for a year, so we have a timeout built into the workbook, and the workbook will shut itself down at the end of the process period. You can engage ARC to turn the workbook back on or license it for an additional year. Workbook licenses are for a particular process or selection process. So if you're doing a DCS selection in a plant, you would engage ARC with a STAR engagement for that DCS selection. If you have 3 selections, then you would engage us 3 times, once for each. If you have 3 different domains you're interested in, again, it would be 3 different engagements. So the workbook, as I mentioned, is automated with Excel macros, and it steps you through the process. Going from one step to another is as simple as clicking on a green button, and then you enter in information on the various pages. The first thing you'd be guided to do is define the project goals and objectives. This is typically a copy and paste from other documents you may already have, but it enters the information about your particular project into the workbook, and this is primarily used for documentation purposes. So the information gets printed out in the final documentation. It also gets printed out along with the RFI that's generated from the workbook. The second step you'd perform is entering in the team that will be making the selection. So this is where you type in the names, email addresses, and positions of the various people involved in this project. And this information should be provided to ARC, primarily because we will sign your team members up with relevant information that comes out during your selection process. That would be industry news, that would be potential access to reports or market studies that come out, or insights that we have specific to the domain where you're making a decision. One of the most important areas of this workbook is in the selection criteria. This is where we categorize selection criteria: general category, commercial category, support, technology, licensing, field presence, and so on. Underneath each one of these categories we have individual criteria. We have a column to describe those in greater detail. We have a column where we provide the assessment strategy, the scoring strategy for different items. There's a column for supplier question. The supplier question is what gets included in the RFI and sent out to prospective suppliers of whatever technology you're interested in. And then there's a final column, not visible here, which is the market presence, capability, or vision. Those are three categories that we chart at the end of this process. We create a chart positioning the various suppliers based again on their presence in the market, the size of the company, their capability, that's product or corporate capability, or their vision, the direction that they're going in, the future of the company. So those three axes are used in guiding the final decision process. This entire area is completely customizable. So if there's a new criterion that you're interested in, you would click the Change or Approve Criteria button, select the Change option, and then step by step go through each one of these columns and enter in the new data, including whether it's a presence, capability, or vision category. You'd press a button and generate a supplier questionnaire. That questionnaire needs to go out to a short list of the suppliers that you'd like to invite in. In developing that short list, ARC can provide additional research in the form of our MIRA, Market Intelligence and Rapid Analysis tool. So if you're doing DCS supplier work or supplier selection, then you would use our MIRA for DCS, and MIRA would list all of the key suppliers in the market, how large they are, their growth, their strengths in various industries, and this would typically be used in guiding your decision to make a short list. This is what the questionnaire would look like as you press the button and take the supplier criteria and export the supplier questions. We generate a new workbook that has both a column for questions and a column for the answers. Suppliers are expected to look at this workbook, type their answers into these columns, and then return the workbook to the company making the strategic decision. This information then gets imported back into STAR, gets evaluated by the selection team, and is used in scoring the vendor against other vendors to make the final decision. This is what the scoring sheet looks like. And the scoring sheet shows you the criteria, the category of whether it's a capability, which is listed as current, vision, or presence. And then here's a weighting area. So each one of these items, the criterion items, are weighted for a level of importance. This is something that tends to be on the contentious side for teams, because people will argue about the importance of items. It's more important to me than it is to you. It's more important to an operator than it is to an engineer. That type of contention tends to arise when defining these numbers. For that reason, we've developed a tool and built it into the workbook called the Analytic hierarchy process. It's a standard process that's typically used for evaluating items against each other, and this tool will allow each member of the team to evaluate the items in a matrix, generate a scoring, and that scoring from each of the team members is aggregated and then finally placed into these columns automatically through the AHP process. So that's a process where each individual now has the ability to enter in their particular scoring for items, have the results aggregated and saved. It removes the contention. Each individual has this information stored in the workbook, and it becomes part of the final results as part of an audit trail. When vendor responses are returned, the vendor names would appear here in the column labels. Their scores are entered by the team as well, and the AHP process can be used again to fill in this area. And the end result is that this area gets multiplied by this area. The results are tallied over here and totaled along the bottom, and you have guidance for making your final decision. So again, to highlight the process that we use, there's the initial development of criteria and supplier questions, categorizing them. There's the weighting of the criteria, defining which criterion is more important than the other. There's sending the questionnaires out to suppliers and aggregating the results into this form of the spreadsheet. Then there's the final scoring. Now at each stage, the team members can go back and reevaluate past work. So if you want to add additional criteria, if you want to reweight things a different way, all of that is possible. You simply go back into additional worksheets, make the changes, look at the results, and when you're finally comfortable, you can press a button and generate a chart which positions the results for your final decision. And selections here are done based on the character of the companies. So a company that tends to be more driven by technology may want to take a leader that has greater vision or greater capabilities, but may not be quite as large in the industry. More conservative companies may want to look at the larger companies that are strong in both vision and capability. So presence is highlighted by the size of the circle. Capability and vision is positioned on the X and the Y axis. And then finally, pressing one more button, you generate a PDF file which documents all of the results of your supplier selection process. Individual results are included, supplier responses are included, the criteria list is included, and this document typically is 100 to 150 pages in length. And that's the end of our supplier selection. We hope you're going to be interested and that you'd like to contact us for more information at arcweb.com.